Hello, everybody. Welcome to another weekly Cherry AMA. Thank you all for joining us. In a moment, I'm going to give a bit of an update as to what's going on. Unfortunately, Herman can't join. There's a lot going on the dev side this week. I'll get to that in a second. And then, unfortunately, Marv can't join either. We will be speaking to Diego, however, and then towards the end, we'll have our quiz. But I will give you my general update that Herman usually gives to the best of my ability now. Then I'll talk about things on the business side, and Herman and/or Brewer will be in the chat today to give a more informed and expert discussion of what's going on the dev side. But I'll just briefly summarize things. Everything is proceeding as planned with regards to the EVM launch on testnet, which has already happened. To the best of my knowledge, or to the best of my ability to explain, the issue at the moment is not actually the EVM at all, but it's just some secondary ancillary tooling issues, namely making the parity chain for EVM explorable, etc., and things like that. And I believe that there's just a couple of things that are being ironed out. And then the team have made the decision to hold off on announcing, although they thought that would happen on Monday or Tuesday, hold off a few more hours on announcing that, just so that they can have a more finished product in place, so that people can really explore it and stuff like that when it comes out, which will not take long. I was expecting it on Monday morning, but there's been a slight delay. Again, it was just a strategic decision made that instead of making the big announcement that things had launched on testnet, that the idea would be to just hold on until more of the other pieces are put in place, so that it's more impressive when we push this out, and it's more impressive in our marketing when things like explorers, etc., are more ready for public consumption and for dev consumption, and there's documentation to go along with this. Now, I've spoken to some people in our community who have been, especially people in our community who I talk to, who are developers, who have said, some have said this is a good idea, some have said that this isn't a good idea, but overall everybody can understand why they did it. It's better to announce and release and publicize something when it is accompanied with all the other things that need to be there for it to be used immediately. That was the decision that was made anyway. It doesn't actually, or hasn't affected the actual timeline of the EVM on testnet, because that has been launched already. The bug bounty, etc., will be launched shortly. Herman and Boer can explain this more later today. Unfortunately, they can't join us at the moment, but the summary is that the parachain has been working for 2 weeks now without any major obvious flaws or any hiccups. The ancillary tooling is being prepared along with documentation, and that's what has just delayed the actual announcement. When the announcement comes, which I'm hoping it might be today, you'll actually be able to see in the previous transactions going back 2 weeks that the EVM testnet or the EVM on testnet parachain has been running already. What this means is that it doesn't unduly affect the timeline for EVM onto mainnet too much, in that since it has been running and things have been kind of checked and tested for the past couple of weeks, it means that we don't have to wait quite as long as we would have expected. Or sorry, the clock towards when EVM will be launched on mainnet has already been ticking for 2 weeks now. So that means that there's less time to wait for that kind of stuff anyway. I'm going to summarize some of these things after I get Herman and Boer's input later today in the AMA summary. I'll be doing that myself straight after the call. and we can proceed from there with uh, with the new kind of expectation of things being announced properly very soon. I mean, it's more a matter of hours than a matter of days. Um, I think most people in our community understand why we did this. I think it's a good idea because I think it's just better to launch the marketing for this when a lot of different pieces are in place. I think that's better. I think that we I know that we have everything, all the material in place anyway. So we have all our graphics, we have our blog posts, we have explainers, we have partners waiting in the wings as well to help push us out, to help us push out that message. So that's quite a good situation, and we'll just wait patiently for the devs to just tighten up a couple of those things, and then the EVM parachain can be revealed publicly, which can be which on which you'll be able to see its operation for the past couple of weeks anyway. So looking forward to that, and I think it'll come, within the next, possibly within the next few hours even. Um, Aside from that, things are progressing quite well on the business side of Cherry. Um, we've kind of identified, based on community feedback, some of the um, some of the recommendations people have made about, for example, our web presence, and we've kind of decided to fast track that. For example, we can currently I'm working on our website upgrade, which will be it'll look pretty good. We've got some talented developers working on that, and I'll be able to show screenshots of this week, I think, and then hopefully next week or the week after that will be launched to the public. I think the website as it is now is pretty good. It's pretty easy on the eye and stuff. I think it gives quite an upbeat impression of the project. I think that's good, but we have to stay abreast of other design developments in the crypto space where they have much more lean and sharp and kind of futuristic websites, which people in our community as well have recommended would be a good aesthetic to adopt. And I think that links well with Cherry's kind of operations as well, so that would be good. I know that John has compiled some notes in our in our presentation. So I'm just going to give me 1 second. I'm going to just try and remember which notes I put into this. Okay, yeah. So as many of you have seen, we've been doing a lot of work with in-person events. I think this is good because it gives us the opportunity to talk to people face to face, which is usually a better way to convey the value of the project and what it can do for developers, rather than just people coming across a link or coming across the website or whatever online. So I think that it's a good way to get people on board. I think we've spoken to or gotten in contact with a few dozen developers in the past, let's say, month, since we started really hitting the event circuit pretty hard. I actually bumped into, at this point, 2 community members at some events, which was very cool and unexpected. I won't name who you guys are, but still, it was great to chat to you. We're going to try and expand this a bit more, and in keeping with this kind of links together. We have a fairly coherent and fairly well-rounded marketing plan for the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks or so, and that will involve hosting our own events, not just as meetups, but as ways for other people to get involved. There'll be an element of this married with the hackathon, and hackathons actually plural, that will be running. So I know that a lot of you guys have asked about this, and what we're trying to do at the moment is find a balance with these hackathons that would enable people who are in person, give them a better advantage when participating, but also to allow people who can't make it to whatever location it's occurring in, they can also participate. I expect that by mid May we'll have the details announced for these hackathons, so that should be fun. I'm looking forward to doing that with you guys. Aside from this, we have been doing our Twitter Spaces. They're pretty good. It's kind of a dry run for us to be able to, you know, make contact with people and figure out how to run a good Twitter Space, because we want to start doing that ourselves. Again, this is in response to a lot of the things that people in the community have asked us about as well. They wanted us to have a greater presence on Twitter, so we've been doing that too. Um, on that note as well, we have a kind of war chest of content to release to you people, and to the wider nice people of the crypto and Web3 spheres. And what that will involve is blogs, videos, explainers, and all this kind of stuff, so that you guys can really convey to the wider public, and especially the wider Web3 public, what Cherry is about. So, as I've mentioned last week, there is somewhat of a bottleneck of sorts in terms of a lot of the things we want to release, because we're at this point waiting for the EVM release, because that will involve also discussing the bug bounties and stuff like that. But then we have a lot of things that are waiting in the wings to be deployed, and the EVM release on testnet will really see a point where a lot of our energies can get redirected again towards um, broadcasting and discussing the project and drumming up interest in the project. So I mentioned this over the past couple of months, that these things have to happen in proper order. There's no point in spending a lot of time, effort, and money on broadcasting the value of Cherry when a lot of the pieces aren't in place for people to be able to use it. Whereas when EVM is launched, that leads us into another era of the Cherry expansion, which will go for a few months in preparation for the launch of decentralized storage on the Cherry chain in a very accessible way to all developers. So, to explain this strategy a bit more clearly, at the moment we're waiting for the full deployment of a means for developers to use Cherry in a much easier fashion. During that rollout phase and broadcast phase of the EVM launch, then we can start to increase momentum and the kind of interest in Cherry, and invest more of our time and energy on that in anticipation for over the next few months. Now, the devs haven't exactly said when this will be released, because they're obviously focused on the milestone before that, so they can't really tell, and there's no point in making vague promises about this. So they'll tell us when that happens. But as Herman said himself, he's expecting that within a few months, a couple of months, that the storage functionality on Cherry will be released. And then at that point, Cherry will really be something that, if our strategy works and we do it in the right order, that we have a group of developers who have already been building on Cherry in the next phase, ready to deploy when the full phase is realized in a few months. Some of this might be confusing, so I'm going to put it again. As I said, I'm going to put it in a in the AMA recap in a much more digestible way. And I think we'll probably be updating some aspects of the website as well, updating our roadmap, which you can see at our along with our ecosystem tracker and stuff like that. So I suppose much of the point of what I'm trying to say is that, thankfully, and thanks to the hard work of the developers, we're getting to a phase where we can start to focus on some of the other things that will help to drive more momentum with Cherry, because it's very good to be able to build something such as EVM compatibility, but it's also very important to then publicize that properly. Now I'm going to go on, and there were a lot of really good questions for the team in the chat over the past few days. Now, some of them I can't really answer, and they should be answered by Boer or Herman, or maybe one of the developers. But I'm going to try and attack some of the ones that are actually within my reach. So bear with me there now a second. So our friend Mr. Tomchak asked if the EVM is a fork of Moonbeam. I think I'll be corrected about this. I might be corrected later, but no, I don't think it is a fork of Moonbeam. There were lots of questions. Could there be a partnership from this for from Killers for Justice? Could there be a partnership with these other networks that are coming out of Layer Zero and Polygon? Yes, there will be. Being a Layer Zero does not preclude you from working with anyone else who is a Layer Zero as well. Some of the people that we're talking to at the moment are Polygon oriented and indeed Layer Ones themselves, and that will be revealed in time as to how those partnerships progress. But we're quite confident at the moment. Cherry is a niche and useful thing for almost any other of the major networks to integrate with to some degree, in my opinion. But a lot of our partners and investors and people that we're negotiating with and discussing with would agree. How would competition with other upcoming channels be? Again, from Killers for Justice. If you mean other projects, I don't think that things stay static, especially in the tech world, but especially not in Web3. And that's one of the good things about it, is that you'll always have some upstart who wants to take what you have or wants to do what you do better. That's good. Competition is good. So what I think. Oh, sorry, Diego just asked me about something there. So he wasn't actually asking about Killers for Justice. Wasn't asking about Layer Zero, the architecture. He was asking about Layer Zero, the the project. And I mean, I think Diego can kind of correct me on this, but I can't think at the moment of what kind of business development we're doing with Layer Zero. I can't name it particularly myself, but Diego might be able to give some update on that, because we have a lot of people that we're talking to and it's hard to keep track of them all. is my answer there. So back to the original thing I was talking about was, yeah, as soon as you see something in Web3 that is providing value and addressing the market, then you will have competitors come and try and unseat you. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I believe that first mover advantage in some of the things that Cherry is doing will be the most beneficial thing for the project in terms of our competitive positioning. I obviously projects like Filecoin will be competitors to a certain degree. At the moment, in terms of what Cherry does specifically in the trustless link it provides between smart contracts and decentralized file storage, no one else is really doing it the same way that we're doing it, and no one else is really doing it to the extent that we're doing it either. There are a couple of smaller projects who are doing something kind of vaguely similar, but they're not using it as a focus. Different aspects of what Cherry does, for example, the decentralized file storage, will be done by, for example, Filecoin as well, of course. So they would be, for example, competitors, but at the same time, these things are quite complex. So it's very easy to find a niche, which would mean that you're kind of insulated from most of the competition that you would otherwise face. It's kind of similar to, let's say, web hosting. It's like you could be in some specific niche of hosting, and that would really mean that you're not necessarily going up against Amazon Web Services or whatever. Um, Certainly, for example, people would not. I mean, are Facebook and TikTok competitors? In some way, they are competitors. In other ways, they're not. Is Twitter a direct competitor with TikTok? Yeah, they're both social media networks, but they're not necessarily direct competitors. They have their niche, and what they dominate in. So I would say that that's similar to how I would describe Cherry's positioning, specifically with regards to decentralized file storage. Um, okay, I'm going to look up the next question now. Yeah, so this was one I saw from Pericles, who I'm now following on Twitter. Um, okay, so it's a long question from Pericles. Okay, so basically the gist of what Pericles said was that he saw in um he's seen from the project and from talking to us, and indeed from talking to me and Diego in person in Spain when we were in Seville last summer. He said that uh, clearly the community and the community involvement and the well-being of the community is very important to the staff. But he wanted to know, how do you plan to maintain the confidence of the community as Cherry continues to face up to and overcome, but also be challenged by things in the roadmap as we move forward. It's a very good question. Obviously, it's a very complex technology that's being worked on, and do have uh, we do have you know we always have to contend with things that will not always go according to plan. But in terms of maintaining the confidence of the community, I would say this. As I mentioned earlier, there are different phases to the project. The phase now is kind of bottlenecked at just before the EVM on testnet launch. Once the testnet has launched, what we've basically decided to do is that we will be timing and scheduling the expansion of the business side of Cherry so that things will come on a regular basis in a way to show our community that progress is continuing steadily. So what that means is, at the moment, myself and Herman are looking at what kind of things will be released in terms of the ecosystem, in terms of the core upgrades, tooling, and indeed marketing and other things like, our website update and stuff. What we're going to do in future is time them properly so that there isn't a long wait of a few weeks for something to be revealed or something to be announced. That announcements will come on basically on a bi-weekly basis, because this is good from the outside looking in to the community, because new people, when they come, then they see that, oh, they just relaunched their website last week, and 2 weeks before that they announced EVM compatibility, and then 2 weeks before that there was a big ecosystem release. So the plan is to keep things moving steadily going forward. I think that's the best way, and also to just try and build as much momentum among the developer community, and as much interest in the project from developers is the best way, in my opinion, to show the community that they have taken on investment in a company that has a reasonable and feasible plan that they are executing in turn in a very predictable and stable way, because that is important to show that to our community that things are predictable, stable, and progressing well internally in the project, and that we are committed to keeping things as, I suppose, low risk as possible going forward, because that's important when you're investing your money into a company, into a project, that things are risk averse, and that everything is done responsibly, and that's certainly something that we're doing at the moment. So I think that's the best way to put that. Um, okay, so Masterizagram asked, with regards to basically using Cherry as a way to create websites and stuff. This is, he asked, I mean, it's a long question again. Cherry domains and, could Cherry go a step beyond selling Web3 and provide domains and create everything necessary for us users to create websites on Cherry where we can sell our services and products and get paid online through the blockchain? So this is a pretty intelligent question. It's a very simple answer that this is yes, this is actually something that's being worked on at the moment. So you would actually be able to host and launch and build with all the frameworks and stuff like that a website within Cherry's kind of technical framework or technical ecosystem. This is something that's been worked on. We talked about, I think, 6 months ago or maybe even longer. So that's progressing reasonably well. I know it's not actually a team that it's a pure ecosystem project in that it's not actually run by us as far as I know. But that team are working away on that, and it will be interesting when it launches. I think that'll be very cool. You can see at the moment what's going on with AI and how you can basically get the agents to pretty much code a full website for you very, very easily, and it's quite impressive. So, in my the vision that I think that some of us would share would be if you could have a DApp on the Cherry network that would allow you to use AI, for example, and very useful and easy to use frameworks to build a website from scratch very easily and host all of the data needed for that app or DApp or website or whatever on the Cherry chain as well. I think that would be a really, really beneficial addition to the ecosystem, and it would also mean that we would attract more users of Cherry that aren't actually very technical. So it's not just focusing on devs, but business people, marketers, etc., would be able to deploy websites on Cherry easily. That's certainly something that we're looking at the moment, and the team themselves are working on the fundamentals of that as we speak. Um, so I'm just going to go and check. I think there was another couple of questions, which I'm going to try and find. Bear with me now. Sorry, guys, bear with me. I thought I had bookmarked one of the questions, but I can't find it now. Okay, yeah, sorry. There was a question from Briz. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's a question of why would you choose Cherry instead of Polkadot or Filecoin? Um, okay, so I would explain this in terms of what Cherry does and the fact that you wouldn't actually necessarily need to decide between, um, let's say, Cherry and Filecoin, because you could use Filecoin for some aspects of some data storage, and then you could use the Cherry file storage module as well. In tandem with that, the whole point of Web3 is that these things are modular and broken down, and that you're not locked into one specific ecosystem. And then you could also use Cherry's indexing system and to link those data stores um, to your smart contract or your DApp or whatever. So that's, I think, the easiest way to explain that. We would also um, we would also compete with the likes of Filecoin in some respects, but again, they're not exactly an obstacle to our success, I would say. With regards to Polkadot, I mean, we're really not really a competitor of theirs because to build, we don't have like a general purpose, a general Web3 purpose like Polkadot. In that Polkadot, any possible use of Web3, of crypto or blockchains that you might have, Polkadot would be able to satisfy those needs, whereas Cherry is more focused on decentralized file storage, smart contracts, etc. So again, I think that in that case they're even less of a competitor than Filecoin. The reality is though that if you wanted to, if your business goals were very aligned with what Cherry is involved in, then it may make far more sense to deploy as a to use a parachain, or to use the layer 0 functionality of Cherry and set up as a layer 1 from Cherry rather than from Polkadot. So it really depends on what you're actually building. So I hope that answer your question, Briz. If not, let me know and I'll try and elaborate on it more, or get Herman and Laura to answer it properly. Okay, so I think that's basically everything from the Cherry side right now, although we will be kind of given more information with regards to the core business update when Herman and Boer are able to do so. In the meantime, however, we're going to go to Diego. He's going to give us a recap on some of the things that he's been working on, and then thereafter we'll go over to John, who'll give us a recap of, the quiz. He'll administer the quiz, as I mentioned earlier at the start of the AMA. Marvin can't join at the moment, but yeah, the final thing we'll do is the quiz. So I'll hand you over to Diego now, if he's there.
Yes, hello guys and fellow blockchain enthusiasts. I'm honored to share with you the latest updates that Seedlings team have been engaged in recently. Some of them were mentioned actually by Owen. So yeah, I'll just give a bit more depth from my side and my experiences. Firstly, and just to help out answering the questions from Killers for Justice, I believe it's his name, regarding the Cherry Network, Layer 0, and Polygon. So they're obviously all solutions aimed at improving blockchain scalability, interoperability, etc. However, they obviously differ in their approaches and core concepts. So Layer 0, what I know from them is running smart contracts on Layer 1 can be extremely expensive. Therefore, Layer 0, as a Layer 0 infrastructure, they export this storage and fetch the transaction data into oracles and relayers, and these two kind of off-chain entities are and their relationship are the ones that ensure the validity of and the validation of the transactions. And regarding Polygon, well, it has nothing to do with Layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum. They use a combination of proof of stake, CK rollups, the Plasma, to improve the network's transaction throughput. And Polygon, they aim to address Ethereum's scalability and gas fee issues. So yeah, I mean, they have different approaches. I think it was Brits or Killers for Justice, I think, asked that question. Owen went through it perfectly, how Cherry Network is different. So yeah, and then moving on to the update, and I hope I made justice answering that question, even though I'm not the most technical guy out here. First, I wanted to talk about the Avalanche Summit in Pueblo Español at the beginning of this next month. As Owen briefly mentioned, our effort on attending events, just to name a few. Our team is thrilled to be attending this event and meeting some key members of the Avalanche team, which is one of the main reasons we're attending, and just networking and attending the pitch events. And this obviously presents a very unique opportunity for us to discuss Cherry Network's potential, Seedling's potential, explore our ecosystem, and establish some very valuable contacts that we can capitalize on the future. And by the way, if any of you are attending, I will personally be there, and I'll be happy to meet you guys in person and answer any doubts you might have, or just sit around a coffee and talk about our ecosystem or Seedling or Cherry. So yeah, if anyone is willing to do so, do let me know. We have actually a very big Spanish community, so I'm sure there will be more than one of you guys attending. I'm also meeting up with some other Spanish leaders in the space, so it will surely be interesting for you guys. Recently, we also attended the SGAE. I don't know how it's called in English, Sociedad General de Autores. It's, well, a blockchain tech conference in Madrid. It was small. It was invitation only event, and we were honored to be invited. We will soon actually be publishing a detailed article about the whole month, this month's events, sharing what we've learned, what we have gained from them, and our experience participating in these conferences, as someone from the chat recommended to do so, and was looking forward to a longer written article about these events. Next, we're excited to announce that we are in, let's say, advanced negotiations with a significant. We're also pulling a significant marketing campaign with a project for a fundraising for Seedling that focuses on connecting all these crypto services and making Web3 more accessible to everyone in more generic terms. We have mentioned this project in the Spanish chat, and we will surely very soon share it in the English chat for any feedback. The plan is to launch, let's say, an exclusive campaign featuring a couple key opinion leaders to help us promote this project and Seedling in a special collaboration. We are currently discussing how many resources we want to allocate to this initiative, and how do we want to do this. And lastly, as Owen mentioned, our team at Seedling, Cherry Network, Cherish, we've been actively participating in the Godbits Twitter Spaces, which we had the pleasure of joining after meeting the Godbit team at Web Summit Lisbon. So obviously, again, coming back to the same point, attending events like this is crucial for our growth and development, and we are proud of our good relationship with all these different leaders. And we can see how we capitalize from attending these kind of events. And yeah, during one of the recent Twitter Spaces, Seedling and myself, we had the opportunity to discuss the future of staking, sharing our insights on this topic and introducing actually our very unique approach of locking tokens for rewards and what we can see interesting in the space. After all, we have a very unique way of rewarding through allocation as a launchpad. And yes, some of the other notable attendees at these Twitter Spaces, I believe it was there was Sushi Swap. But I may not recall all the participants at the moment right now. And yeah, we plan to share a video recap of the discussions held during these sessions with you soon. And that was all. Thank you all for being here today and showing your support to Seedling, to Cherry Network, to the ecosystem. We look forward to your questions, feedback, and ongoing engagement as we continue to grow and contribute to this exciting world of blockchain and cryptocurrency. Thank you.
Thanks, Diego. Yep, some interesting points there. I think we're going to go and move on to the quiz now. There's a couple of people who are waiting for prizes from previous weeks, but I got to people from last week, and so yeah, I think there's two guys in particular. You know who you are, and I'll try and get to that as soon as possible. And then the winners from today will be announced later. I'll also make sure that the recap of this AMA comes out this evening, hopefully with some added input from the technical founders as well. So, with that being said, thank you all for joining. Another positive discussion with you guys. I'm going to leave you now with John. He's going to do the honors with the quiz, and then I'll definitely speak to you guys later in the group and in the announcements channel with the details of the update from the founders and also the AMA recap, of course. Thank you very much for joining, and I'll talk to you soon.